Hey everybody, this is Erin Lincoln, and I'm here to show you how to put together a softie from the Quick Stitch Kit Design-A-Softie kit. Today we're going to be putting together this mustachioed teddy bear, which is adorable. Alright, here's the softie die. It's about the size of my hand, and I'm going to show you how on the felt you can cut the felt to maximize the usage, because I know the felt's expensive and some of you have some concerns about that. So what we basically can do is cut a body, an ear, an arm, and a leg on one width of the felt. And that way, we really use the most of what we got and you save some money. Alright, so that's one way to cut it, just to give you an example. Okay, with this large softie die, I want to run this through my die cut machine on its own just because it's so large, and I'll do all the extras later. And just so you know, you need two of these softie bodies, one for the back and one for the front. So right now we're just doing the one set, and now we're going to cut the ear, the arm, the leg. Now for each of the arms and each of the legs, you need 4 cuts. Again, because there's 2 legs, and you need a front and a back, and 2 arms, and you need a front and a back. Now I'm going to run this through all at once. Oh, maybe not. I think I'll do the leg later. Changed my mind. And run it back through. I have a little overhang, and that's because maybe the ear and the arm die were a little too close together, but nothing a pair of scissors can't fix. Okay, we're going to do the body again. And here's a different positioning of all those 3 dies running through, just so you have an idea, and maybe we won't have that little problem where the felt didn't cut because the dies were too close together. Okay, so I still need extra cuts of the arm and the leg. And you can get 4 across on a width of felt. Just remember, I need 4 of each. And the other thing I need 4 of each of is the ear. Especially if you double up and you don't want any stitching showing on the back. You definitely want 4 from that little ear patch that you can put in. Alright, so just to repeat, 2 cuts of the body, 4 cuts of the arms, 4 cuts of the legs, and 4 cuts of the ear. And this uses about $4 to $5 worth of felt, which seems like a lot, but we're creating a stuffed animal. We have, something really tangible. So if you think of it in that respect, it's not too bad. Okay, we have the ear patches to put that little color ear in the middle of the ear. And so there's a holes only version. So you can cut the stitching guide into your ear. Now you only want to do this on 2 of the ears. The 2 ears facing out, facing you on the front. The backs from behind shouldn't have any ear patches, so you don't need these additional stitching holes. So only do this on 2. There you go. And those ear patches I did in the iron-on transfer video. I'm not cutting those on this video, but you can refer to that to wonder where I got those. The striped felt is what I'm referring to. Okay, now we're going to do all the details for the face. I'm really excited because I've never done a softie with a mustache before. It's the first time using a mustache. A lot of these dies have holes only versions and shape and hole versions. A lot of the ears and the mouth and the eyelashes, they're usually holes only. It all depends. There are so many options for you in creating these softies. You're going to go crazy. But right now we're cutting all the extra details out of felt. I have an ear, an eye patch, a mustache, and this little circle die that seems to be getting a lot of use from me. It's the smallest circle, and that's used for the eyes. This teddy is for my nephew, his first birthday. He's having a teddy bear picnic birthday party. And so I wanted to make sure there were no buttons and everything was sewn down. So this guy is made entirely out of felt. You want to do that for babies. You don't want anything popping off. Now as I cut everything, I like to lay it down and I kind of see my face take shape, and I know what else I need to cut. I just kind of a visual for me. And that's our second eye. There he is. Now I want to show you something. Before I started this, I created a paper version of this teddy bear. And I recommend this because it kind of gives you an idea of what you want your teddy bear to look like, or your softie, excuse me, to look at like, without cutting into the expensive felt. Paper is much cheaper. I would go for that first. Create a paper version. Okay, I'm using the holes only dies for the eye patch, the mustache, and the tie. I'm going to run that through. And I kind of feel like the nose and the other eye that's on the eye patch are dependent of placement on the eye patch, which is separate because it's sewn onto the white circle. And so I've decided not to do the holes only for the nose and that second eye, because I want to see where that eye patch and mustache go on the face. And that's okay if I don't have the holes only stitching guide on the softie body for those. Just kind of, for this specific instance, I think it's kind of personal preference. Okay, really quick, I'm going to show you how to layer felt. There's a lot of layering on these softies, and so we're going to layer an eye on the eye patch. And at the same time, I'm showing you how I stitch. And I usually do this once per stitching video. So you just go up and down, and then go to the next hole, and up and then down. And so you make it all the way to the end, and it looks like you've sewn every other stitch. And then you turn and you reverse direction, and in reversing you fill in all those empty stitches and make it back to the beginning, and so it looks like one continuous sewn line. And that is how I do all my stitching on the stitching projects. It's a little bit hard to see there on that little itty bitty eye, but when we sew the eye patch on, you'll have a better idea. I'm not concerned about hiding my thread, my knots on the face, because it's all on the inside. Nobody sees this. So I'm going through the backs. Okay, for you stitching newbies, this is how you do it. You go through the back, up one hole, find a matching hole on the eye patch. Again, we're layering felt. And then we go down. And then we come back up on the next hole. And on the next hole we go down. And so I'm going to work myself all the way counterclockwise around that circle to where I started, and then I'm going to reverse. And I've made it all the way to the end, and now I'm reversing, and you see how it all fills in. So for you newbies, that's how I do all the stitching. And we're going to tie it off in the back, because nobody sees the back of the softie. We're not worried about our knots. Just a double square knot. Now another tip, since these are going to get a lot of love and a lot of play, there's something called fray check, which is in a little bottle. It's a clear fluid. It's almost like a glue for fabric. It dries clear, and if you really want things to be really super secure, put a little fray check on the backs on these knots, and that'll help a lot. Okay, remember I didn't cut the holes only for the nose and the eye because I kind of felt those were a little dependent on where that that right eye went. I wanted him looking in the same direction, and I wasn't confident to cut the holes only version. So I'm going without a stitching guide on the softie body. But because we have holes in the nose and that second eye, it's really no big deal. I can use those holes to guide me. The backs just won't look as nice. That's the only other thing. Okay, I have everything stitched in. Notice I did the ear patches on the ears. Used that stitching method I showed you with the eye patch. You didn't need to see that. It would have been a very long video if I did that all on screen. And now it's time to start the assembly on our limbs. But first, a little tip for you newbies. I like to poke out the felt plugs for all the holes. I use the back end of a blunt needle, and as you can see, I just kind of poke them through. It doesn't take long at all, and I usually do this as I go with whatever piece I'm working on. Like right now we're using the arms, which we are going to put together. Are you ready? All right, this is a little different because I don't want my knot to show. So I'm going to insert my needle between the layers of felt at the starting point, which is up there in the corner, kind of like at the top of the shoulder in this instance. And we're going to do the running stitch every other, all the way down around the hand, and then back up to this other point equivalent to the other where I started. And now I'm going to reverse it and fill in those blank spots. Okay, we're all done here. I've made it back up to the beginning, and now it's time to put a little polyfill. Call this stuffed animal guts. Big bag of it. I have like a 20-ounce bag, and it's bigger than my torso, and I've had it forever. You know, it's just like this fiber fill. What's inside stuffed animals? And you take just a little bit, especially on the limbs, and the back of a bamboo skewer, the flat instead of the pointy, and you just kind of shove it in the arm opening and you fill it in. You just don't want so much that you strain those stitches. You'll see. I mean, you'll see if you overdo it. You just take a little bit out. But I would, less is more. It's easier to put more in than to take it out right now. So just go gentle, a little bit at a time, and you'll see how it goes. Okay, go ahead and close off the top of your limb. We never cut that thread, and we left it on the needle. Just close it up, and as opposed to not closing it up and closing it up when you sew it to the body, that's just too many layers of felt to deal with. This is the easiest way to deal with extra layers of felt when you sew everything together. Close them off. You don't have polyfill spewing out. It's just much easier to deal with if you close this now. And if you notice, I am tying off between the layers of felt. That last stitch, I didn't go through 2 layers, just the one. And I found the thread from the very beginning that I started in between the felt too, so I could knot it, tie it, cut it, close it off. All right, I went ahead and did the rest of my limb. Okay, I went ahead and did the rest of my limbs. You've seen one, you've seen them all. They're all the same. The ears are a little different. There's no holes on the bottom. That's because these ears could go anywhere on the head, whereas the arms and the legs have a very specific spot on the softie body where they need to go. So I didn't put holes on the bottom. But you do want to stuff them with just a little bit of polyfill, not much, just to make them a little puffy. Okay, I'm going to show you about stitch markers. I use safety pins as stitch markers because the limbs have corresponding parts on the body where they belong. The arms start right there at the neck divot, and the legs right there at the corner where the body tucks under. Now, stitch markers is something from knitting and crocheting. And what I'm doing, I am lining everything up on the top layer of my softie body. And I'm placing these stitch markers to tell me when I'm stitching and kind of all zenned out stitching where I need to stop and insert an arm, a leg, ear. They're just visual reminders. Especially since, you know, those ears could go anywhere. You want them nice and centered on the head. Not in this instance. I do not like where I put these ears on this head, and I fix it later. And then because I sew in a clockwise direction from underneath the left arm, I have to count the holes in a couple of the limbs to indicate where I start stitching, because I start stitching not at those landmarks. I go from underneath, and you'll see what I mean. Okay, so this is where I like to start stitching. About 2 stitches underneath the left arm. I go in between the felt layers. I get like 1 or 2 stitches in, and then the next stitch would go through that stitch marker. So I take out the stitch marker, find my arm in this case, and I insert it in, and I match up those holes. And it takes you about 2 or 3 holes to get this in place where it needs to go, so you don't really have to fiddle with it much after that. But for a couple holes, you really have to be careful to get your needle through the holes at the body and the corresponding holes of the limb or arm or whatever. You just go every other, making sure I catch all the holes in the arm. That needle goes right through them. And you can see why closing the limbs off is of benefit right now. You just have to deal with one layer of felt. Okay, now I'm going to go all the way down here to just past the left leg and sew in the ears and the legs. That's all like I did there with the arm. The stitch markers tell me where to insert something. And now I reverse it. And it's much easier going back because everything is stitched in place. It's easy to slide your needle through the holes. It's very much like lacing cards. This is a piece of cake at this point. Now I go all the way back around to right underneath that armpit on the left. And I have done that. See, it's gone all the way back. And this last stitch, I go through just one layer of felt. I pick up the tail of my thread, double knot it, and cut it. You need a fairly long piece of thread in order to stitch this length, so just keep that in mind. You do have to use a very long piece. Okay, now we're ready to stuff our softie. I'm going to use a lot of polyfill here. I thought I needed like a spoon or something to get that in there, but actually the hole that we have left is so large I can actually put my hand up in there, or a finger. And you just stuff this little guy until he's nice and plush. Just don't strain those stitches, you'll know. Always take some out. Stuff them some more. Kind of even out the polyfill. And now you see him really taking shape. He's all ready for a cuddle. One last step. Okay, we just have this little length to close. And you do that with a running stitch all the way up to where you started stitching before and then back. And now our softie is completely stuffed and closed up. There he is, yay! All right, I hope you thought that was pretty easy. It really is. And you'll be making softies of your own soon. Now, I hated where I put those ears. And so you don't trust yourself when you do videos. You make bad decisions because you have so many things to think about. So that night I went in and I cut the thread between his ears, ripped open his head, and moved the ear. So I thought that looks better. There you go. Okay, happy softie making. Can't wait to see what you do. Thanks.